Hey YouTubers, today I'm working on my Q5, 2010 Q5 3.2, and I'm doing suspension work on it. So more specifically, I'm changing two of the A-arms. So this car has complex A-arms, so it has two parts to the lower A-arm and two parts to the upper A-arm on each of the front wheels. So that's 4 parts per wheel. I'm only changing one A-arm per wheel because it's only one that really gets more stressed than all the rest. So I'm going to show you guys which one it is, why it gets stressed, and the process in changing. So as usual, if you like the videos I make, click like so I know to make more of the same, and if you want to see more when I make them, hit subscribe. Let's get into it. Nice shiny aluminum lower control arm. So this is the description for this is the forward facing lower control arm for the front. On the front of the vehicle, on the lower there's a forward and then there's a rearward. Rearward is much smaller than this. This is the forward, and then this one has ball joint in here, which is in this bag. So let's open the bag also. See what's involved in this. Castle nuts. I can almost guarantee you that castle nut is not the same size as the one that's on the car right now. It has a really nice rubber boot on here, which I'm sure I could just pop this off if I wanted to. And that goes, this goes in here like so. So on the suspension, this goes on the upright, the spindle, I guess you could call it. It's mounted to the spindle, and then this goes on top of it like so, and then this part mounts to the body of the car, and right here, the strut that's holding the spring that's putting the entire front corner of the car is on this little joint. This is the only part of the suspension that's connected to the wheel, that's connected to the suspension, to the spring. So this has a spring on it that's pushing down and keeping the car off the ground, basically. And so these wear out before all of the rest, because the rest of them, they're just kind of holding everybody in check and, you know, making sure everything works right. This is holding up the entire weight of that corner of the car. Right in here we have a really nice L that's pressed into that. So I know this is the left side. I think the ball joints are the same left to right, so I'm not worried about that aspect of it. And then it has this castle nut that goes on top of here, and I'm sure there's a cotter pin in there that I need to look for. Make sure I have that before I take everybody apart. And then I'm stuck with no way to move around because I won't be able to put it back together. But yeah, there's that. More stuff in the bag. Oh, we get a brand new bolt. Looks like hardened steel, which is good. That's what it's supposed to be. And then we have the cotter pin, which goes on top of this castle nut to make sure that that nut doesn't back out once you tighten it. And then there's a lock washer that goes with this nut. So that's what's in each of these boxes. I have left and right side. I'm going to show you guys the left side because that's the one that I'm going to take apart first, because the left side is over on this side, and coincidentally I unboxed the left side. So I'm going to jack the car up, take the wheel off, which I may not even need to take the wheel off, but for the sake of simplicity I'm going to take the wheel off, and I'm going to show you guys what's going on down there and what's involved. This is the left side front suspension, wheel removed. I jacked up both sides, put both sides on jack stands, and the reason why I want to jack up both sides and take the suspension, take the weight off the suspension on both sides, is because the stabilizer bar is connected down here to this piece, and if there's load on the suspension on one side and not on the other, that sway bar will be twisting adding load to this side, and it'll make it do things that I don't want it to do. It just makes the process harder. So when you're dealing with suspension, especially on the front, you want to jack up both sides so that the sway bar is not causing problems. Anyway, the piece that I'm changing today is this little thing right here. It's bolted to the body of the car. Let me get a better angle. Alright, so here's the view from the bottom. This is where this A-arm, this is the piece we're talking about. This is what I'm taking off. This is where it's mounted to the body of the car. This is where all the stress happens. That bushing is completely worn out. You'll see when I take it apart. To get this out, this is a triple square. There's a nut on the other side of it. So if you don't have a set of triple squares, now would be a good time to go get some, because you're not doing this job without it. This is where it's mounted to the spring. So this arm goes up, and then it's mounted to a coilover. Not to be confused with a McPherson strut. A McPherson strut is a pivot point. This is not that. This is just a coilover up there. And then down here we have the ball joint. This ball joint is held in by a pinch bolt right here, and so I should be able to undo this bolt and nut, wedge a chisel in there just enough to spread it, and take the entire ball joint out of the spindle as one unit. So the process is we unbolt this nut first, take the weight, take the stress off of the entire lower control arm, and then once you take that off, then I'm going to take off this that's on the body, and then I'm going to take off the ball joint, because I may need to wiggle that ball joint around to get it to circumnavigate this axle right here. This axle may be the only thing that's intruding in my space. We'll see if I can work around it. If not, I'm probably gonna have to pop the axle out, or at least undo it to where I could push it back enough to get enough clearance. But yeah, that's the process. I'm gonna do that right now. If anything different has to happen, I'll video it and show you guys. But if not, then the next thing I'm gonna show you is this A-arm, this control arm on the ground. Time for an episode of What Did We Do? What Did We Learn? So, this part where the bolt is, that's got the shock tower on it, that is an 18 millimeter on the front and on the back. This triple square that goes on the front of this, on the inside, that is M12, so that is an M12 triple square. This little bolt that goes into the height sensor, there's a 10 millimeter on one side. On the other side, it's flat, and if you put an open-ended 10 millimeter wrench, it'll hold the flat side, and then you can twist this nut off. And then when I was done, I just put the 10 millimeter on the end of the sensor up here, so that I wouldn't have to look for it later. This one, this pinch nut, there's just a bolt going through it. There is no nut on the other side, and it is a 16 millimeter. So we need an 18, a 16. We need two 18s because you need to hold a nut and bolt. You need a 16 millimeter. You need an M12 triple square and 10 millimeter. As far as getting this out, I took out that pinch bolt, and then I put the jack under the suspension, the spring part, so it wouldn't come down, and then I whacked this spindle downward. Here you can see the little gouge marks where I whacked it really good, and I just whacked it off of that ball joint. I had no clearance issues whatsoever. I just beat it with a hammer a little bit. It came loose, and then I was able to wiggle the entire assembly out. So the next step in the process, I'm going to put the new ball joint on the new control arm, since that's how this one came out, and it came out pretty easy. I had no problem. So I'm going to put the ball joint on the control arm and then put the control arm back in the car. Pretty straightforward, really easy work. You know, take your time, do it right the first time, tighten those bolts down really good, because of course it is suspension, and then when you're done, double check your work. You should be all right. So I'm gonna show you guys the control arm when I put it in, the new one. But other than that, so this is the piece. So if you see that, this rubber bushing is just completely toast. All right, you would think that it's the outside here where the load is on the arm that was messed up, but nope, it's the inside here. And from what I could see, the one on the other side is even worse. This ball joint is actually in fairly good shape. I'm guessing it's like that because it is original Audi part with the Audi stamp on it. I'm actually gonna keep these. I'm gonna keep this control arm because I might be able to just buy that bushing, replace it, and then keep it for a later date in case I ever need it again. But for now, let's work on reassembly. I put the ball joint on, tightened it really good with an impact, and then put the cotter pin on top. Pretty standard procedure. Slid it down in this hole. I didn't have to pry this. I didn't have to wedge this open at all. It was loose enough that I could put it in there and then tap it home with I put a 1/2 inch extension on the end of it and got out of the way and then knocked it down in there, and then run this 16mm bolt through here. I have this jacked up to where this hole is lined up. This bolt, this 18mm bolt, and this 18mm nut go through here on the suspension part, on the spring part. This big fat washer goes on the bolt, and it goes in from back to front, and then the nut goes on the front side of it, and it tightens up. And then when you're doing the inside part, that one, the head of this triple square bolt goes in from the front, and it goes into the back, and then the nut goes in on the back side. So that's how everything goes back in. I'm going to tighten everything up and then show you guys the finished product. It's done. Everything is in there. Everything is bolted up. Like I said, that bolt on the frame, that's not a cam bolt. There is no alignment adjustment on that. Don't forget this little booger here with the sensor on it, that 10mm. And then of course your suspension bolt, easy enough. And then this pinch bolt that goes onto the knuckle, also easy enough. And then this one had a castle nut. The original one did not have a castle nut. It was just a retaining nut, one of those things that tightens as you tighten it on. They gave me this in the kit. Don't know where it goes or what I use it for. I put back all the bolts that I took off, and everything is in order. So I'm just gonna set this to the side, maybe keep it for some other project since I don't know where it goes. And that's it. I'm gonna do the other side now. I'm not gonna bore you guys with showing you the exact same process twice, but if something substantial is different on that side that I need to show you guys, then I will show it in the video. If not, then that's pretty much it. This project took me an hour all in, and difficulty level, I would rate it, I don't know, a 3 out of 10. It's just taking stuff off and putting it back on. There's nothing technical, there's nothing hard about it. Just pay attention to where the bolts came out and put them back that way. Of course, the passenger side does not want to cooperate. That ball joint does not want to come out of there. So this is what I'm going to try to do. I have a socket set underneath the ball joint, right, like that. I have all the bolts disconnected. That's disconnected, that's disconnected, it's hanging down there. That actuator is on the driver's side. There's nothing on the passenger side. Doesn't want to come out, so I have a socket on the jack sitting underneath here in the hole where the ball joint goes, and then up here I have a socket extension sitting on this pedestal part of this upright, and then it's sitting on the body of the car, which isn't the ideal thing to do, But what I'm gonna do is try to jack this up, and then by having this set on the body of the car, it won't allow it to go up, and hopefully it'll move. It'll move in a manner that will facilitate removal, like that. So that little hack, apparently it works.